From Brandon Justice on Twitter, Michigan wide receiver commit Samaje Morgan confirmed that Ron Bellamy has switched from safeties coach to wide receivers coach. So that is out there. I think that's a pretty significant move for the Michigan Wolverines coaching staff as well. Thought on Ron Bellamy.
That's going to be a great move, and I tell you why. I don't want to discredit anything that the past wide receiver coach have done over the past 20 years or so, or 15 years that wasn't soup. But you can see the difference, and I've been noticing the difference in wide receivers at Michigan, and it's not their fault. They haven't been getting the correct coaching. When you watch them at the line of scrimmage, just little things I noticed, like getting the DB's hands off them, the way they run routes, the way they stay in phase with the defensive back as they're running deep routes, the way they keep 4 yards to the sideline so that the ball has a chance to drop down to where the ball is. Like, there's a lot of things that I've watched, intermediate routes, breaking down, making sure your eyes stay over the balls of your feet, that you don't slip when you run a route. I've noticed that over the years, and I've been waiting for them to go back to that Eric Campbell route, that Eric Campbell tree. We talk about coaching trees. Eric Campbell, Ron Bellamy played for Eric Campbell. Ron Bellamy has done an amazing job at West Bloomfield High School for 11 years, and you saw the work that he did last year as an assistant DB, so I'm very excited about that move. Now you'll see immediately. Just watch how wide receivers are once the season starts.
It's almost like you were a wide receiver, man.
Well, that's the one position I definitely can talk with the best of them.
You sure could.
Yeah.
Talking about young coaches being hired, Michigan brings in Vanderbilt's defensive coordinator Jesse Minter to serve as the new defensive coordinator for the Michigan Wolverines.
Angelique was all over this story.
Yes, she was. 2 weeks ago, she almost broke out an "I told you" tweet. Ballas, Wolverine, Chris Ballas, tweeted Minter, a candidate for the job, a candidate to join the staff last year, interviewed recently, was expected to get the offer. He seemed number one on the list after former Michigan linebackers coach Larry Foote, now Tampa Bay Bucs linebackers coach, opted to take his name out of the running. So Minter, another young guy in his 30s, another Jim Harbaugh going younger kind of guy. Now Minter coached with Mike McDonald in Baltimore for the Ravens from 2017 to 2020. There was a thought that Minter was going to be on Michigan's staff last year as a defensive assistant, but instead took the coordinator role at Vanderbilt. So he's been a coordinator for 1 year under the same tree as Mike McDonald, same philosophy. We'll see how it goes. Worked out well last year.
I like the optics of this pick. I think I'll start there. I like the optics of this. You got a guy that's 15 years in terms of coaching. He started out with Notre Dame in terms of being a defensive intern. He coached at Indiana State, I believe. He was a linebackers coach, as well as he turned into the defensive coordinator. He was the defensive coordinator at Georgia State. He did work with John Harbaugh with Baltimore. He spent some time there 4 years. And last year, as opposed to come on our staff at Michigan, he goes down and takes a head defensive coaching job in the SEC against Vanderbilt. So he got his feet wet in terms of being the head guy, being the head coordinator, the defensive coordinator for the Vanderbilt. And then he comes into Michigan, fresh off of being 2 years removed off that Baltimore staff where he was with Mike, where he was with John Harbaugh. He understands the concepts that were run last year by Mike McDonald and his defense. So just looking at it from that point of view on the optics side, you got to be happy that they're staying consistent with what they did last year. They're not going to have too much changeover for this defense to have to learn. That's one of the big things you worry about when you have such success as Michigan did last year. And then next year you kind of shred everything to Rebs and start over. You don't want to start over. And I think by hiring from within Sherrone Moore, which we'll talk about, and then with Jesse Minter, you're not starting over. You're keeping the same things in place, which will make it an easier transition for the players.
Look, Michigan lost both coordinators this past year, coming off a Big Ten championship. So they got to replace a defensive coordinator. They got to replace an offensive coordinator. And they have done that from within on the offensive side. As you mentioned, Sherrone Moore elevated to offensive coordinator along with Matt Weiss, co-offensive coordinators. Now, generally, I don't usually like the co-offensive coordinator situation because I always feel there's a push and a pull there, and I don't know who's calling plays, who's responsible for plays. Are people happy with the jobs that they get, the roles that they're in? But we'll find out. I think Jim Harbaugh, for the most part, is responsible for the offensive philosophy, and those guys kind of hone it.
Sherrone Moore is a great choice to move from within and move him up because last year he was one of the only coaches that Jim kept around. He was one of the guys that Jim kept around. He put him in a role.
He earned this.
Exactly. Put him in an offensive line coaching job last year, which he had never done before. He had been the tight ends coach previous years to that. Now you elevate him to offensive coach staff. It's a reward. Players love him. He's one of the most beloved coaches on that team. He stays. He's showing you some semblance of normalcy from last year. He's showing you some consistency from a couple years ago. Because there's some kids on that team that are 4 years in, 5 years in. They've been with Sherrone Moore now for 4 years and 3 years and 2 years. So I think that's a good move, especially you don't have time to go out and recruit and really maybe pull somebody and poach somebody and then bring in a whole new system. I mean, we're in February. Spring ball starts in a week and a half. Spring ball starts in about a week and a half, 2 weeks, where they're going out there, they're getting active, they're learning plays all over again. This is the best situation for Michigan this year. Let's hope it pays off. But I tell you like this, I am a huge fan of Sherrone Moore and Jim Harbaugh doing the coach thing with Weiss as well as Sherrone Moore. I think it could be a good move on the offensive side of the ball.
I hope he picked up a couple of tricks from Gaddis, though. I love those trick plays that they broke out towards the end of that year.
Again,
I mean, that offense, man, at the end of the year, when they weren't running on first down, passing on second down, when they got fun and smart, it was very enjoyable to watch.
Here's one suggestion. I only have one suggestion, and from now until the season starts, I promise this is my only suggestion. Until Micah gets there, and I'm going to tell you to start my nephew. But the only suggestion I have is feature A.J. Henning more. We saw A.J. Henning at the beginning of the year. He ran a reverse for 50 yards and a touchdown. Then we never saw him again. Then you saw him a couple brief spots, got tackled behind the line of scrimmage, 1 yard, 2 yard gains. And then Gaddis implemented that great play that he did against Ohio State. The first touchdown that Michigan scored on the face talk and the fake pitch, toss back to the right with A.J. Henning, and he scored. Get A.J. Henning more featured in his offense. I'm telling you, that will help you so much more because he can do so many things. He's a return-like player, but he also is a receiver. He also plays in the backfield direction now. Get him more involved.
All right, here's my suggestion, and I promise not to give any more suggestions on the Michigan football
Ryan.
until tomorrow. Utilize the talent you have.
Yeah.
Utilize the talent you have. I mean, when we saw that Maryland game last year, Ohio State and Iowa, that was some of the finest offensive play calls that I have seen in a 3-week period at Michigan in over 25 years.
They didn't look Michigan.
They looked like they wanted to play and move into the 21st century.
Yep.
And play like college football teams play that win big now. They could score 60 points like Ohio State could every game if they played that type of offense. What they did to Maryland was incredible. They did what they had to do against Ohio State in the cold and the snow. And then, of course, they were having fun against Iowa. Utilize the speed on your team because this team will probably have more speed than any other team in the Big Ten outside of Ohio State. Man, you should crush teams this year. Don't go Sherrone Moore, Matt Weiss. Run, pass is not an offense that I'd like to see next year. Run, pass is not an offense I'd like to see ever. Unless it's like 20 below, the wind is howling, and you cannot run or you cannot throw the football. Like, if you want to continue to get all of this talent accumulated at Michigan, you've got to also show that when they get to Michigan, they can be showcased. They can shine. That's all I'm saying, and I use alls for effect.
Listen, Donovan Edwards, he's your unicorn. He's your Deebo Samuel. Use him like the Niners use Deebo Samuel because the kid catches almost as good as Braylon Edwards. No relation. And he could run with the best of them. This kid, he is like a wide receiver in a running back's body. Use him a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's my suggestion.
No, I agree. And don't use them a lot and don't overuse them. I think sometimes you put individuals in situations. Like you see what they tried to do with Donovan Edwards in the Georgia game. Like where they tried to this didn't work, let's throw that out there. That means you get behind the count. When you use these athletes, whether it's A.J. Henning, whether it's Donovan Edwards, obviously Blake Corum will probably go into the season starting running back. When you're using these players, use them ahead of the count. Use them ahead of when teams think you're going to use them. Because when you use them ahead, teams don't know what to expect. Then you can use them like what Donovan Edwards did against Maryland, what Donovan Edwards did against Iowa, they weren't ready for it because they were ahead of the count on that. Don't use those players, A.J. Henny, when they know it's coming. Use them ahead of the count so you can stay ahead of the count all season. Don't get behind.
Guys, I got to get to this video next. If you haven't seen it, it's one of the more stunning videos you will see in sports, really, when it comes to betting, knowing what the line is, and affecting that particular outcome. Not who wins or loses,
right,
but who covers the spread and who doesn't cover the spread. I have bet on games in the past. This is as shocking an event as I will ever see.
Can I ask you a question
Yes.
without exposing our teas? When you saw who it was, were you surprised?
I was still shocked.
Okay.
I was still
That's fair.
shocked at what I saw.
That's
I
fair.
wasn't shocked at the guy on the sideline.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
Ermanni and Edwards.
Woodward Sports Network, the bottom line. You've reached the end of the video. You know what you should do? Press like. You know you like the content that we have here at Woodward Sports Network. I'm Braylon Edwards from the bottom line. Subscribe to us right now.